Having been brought up as a skeptical Protestant, I didn't think saints were of much use. They seemed to be idealized figures from the early centuries of Christendom that some wanted to venerate. Their shortcomings were ignored. A good dose of historical realism was needed. Yet on the other hand, as time's gone on, I've seen that saints and heroes and heroines, at their best, have had the capacity to lift our vision, to invite us to dream of the impossible, and urge us to get off our backsides and get on. At their best, they can reach across time and culture to encourage our faith. Most of the historical saints, when viewed with historical critical tools, are less than inspiring. By modern standards, a number would need the support of mental health services. Yet unconstrained by religious convention, we can think about saints more broadly as anyone who encourages us and inspires us in our faith journey. Personally, I find it hard to go past Nelson Mandela. He is a modern exemplar of perseverance, courage, humility, and reconciliation. He's also someone who would be appalled by the honorific of saint being attached to his name. He's never walked the path of self-glorification that Bishop Brian Tamaki last week seemed to be intent on. As I lift my eyes downstairs, there on our office wall hangs Nelson's picture that Clay has replicated in your cue sheet this morning. It commemorates the time that he stood here in this spot in the pulpit of St. Matthew's and thanked those New Zealanders who tried to stop the South African rugby team touring in 1981. It was one of the moments that has blessed this place, and his cheeky grin downstairs continues to be a blessing. Nelson was born in 1918 in Transkei. He was groomed for high office and sent off to a Wesleyan secondary school. Without the church, he once wrote, I would never have been here today. We grew up at a time when the government of South Africa owed its duty only to whites. It took no interest whatsoever in our education. Not so the churches. Nelson began a university education but was suspended for joining a protest. It was while studying for a law degree that he joined the African National Congress. In 1944, he was part of a small group who set themselves the task of transforming the ANC into a radical mass movement. It was this group that inspired the ANC conference to adopt strategies of boycott, strike, civil disobedience, and non-cooperation. Nelson had exceptional organizational abilities. And these came to the fore in 1952, when he travelled the country organising a mass civil disobedience campaign. Also in that year, he opened the first black legal practice in South Africa with his friend Oliver Tambo. Two qualities of leadership are apparent in Mandela in this early period. Firstly, a passion for the plight of his people. Through his legal practice and his travels, he heard time and again of the misery and oppression that apartheid foisted upon him, and he felt that very deeply. Secondly, Nelson was willing to stand up fearlessly for what he believed was just and right, and to suffer the consequences. In the 1950s, he was banned, arrested, and imprisoned numerous times. In 1960, the ANC itself was outlawed. Nelson was now the leading figure in the movement. Yet he continued to speak out. He lived evading the police by constantly travelling and using disguises, hence the nickname the Black Criminal. Around this time, the ANC began preparing for an armed struggle. As Nelson said, it was only when all else had failed, when all channels of peaceful protest had been barred to us, that the decision was made to embark on violent forms of political struggle. In 1962, Mandela was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison. However, the length of sentence was later increased to a life for sabotage. Through all his court appearances, he used the opportunity to proclaim his message. For example, he said in 1964, "I have fought against white domination. I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal which I hope to live for, and an ideal which I am prepared to die for." Nelson spent nearly 27 years in prison, most of it on Robben Island. He and his colleagues were subjected to hard labour and dehumanising treatment. Yet prison, also according to his friends, had a spiritually maturing effect on him, preparing him for the reconciling tasks he was ultimately to accomplish. He read widely, particularly on religion. Any arrogance and self-righteousness fell away, while perseverance, patience, and compassion ripened. As Mandela later said, "To appreciate the importance of religion, you have had to be in a South African jail under apartheid, where you could see the cruelty of human beings." In those 27 years, the authorities tried to make Nelson into a non-person. He could not be quoted, no pictures of him were allowed, and it was hoped that he would disappear into the limbo of amnesia. But he became instead the world's most famous political prisoner, an unassailable icon of struggle against racial injustice. When it was eventually decided that he would be released unconditionally, there were fears that the country would erupt in turmoil. But although there was overwhelming reason for him to be bitter, the years in prison had changed him. On emerging, he defined the task he had set for himself as one of reconciliation, of binding the wounds of the country, of engendering trust and confidence. Nelson was released in 1990, elected president of the ANC in 1991, oversaw the end of apartheid in 1994, and was elected president of a democratic South Africa in the same year. There is physical courage and there is spiritual courage. Physical courage is facing pain, weighing the consequences, and yet still proceeding. And Nelson did this time and again in the 50s and 60s.